Rocky Dennis was born Roy Lee Dennis on December 4, 1961, in Glendora, California. At birth, nothing seemed unusual about him. His mother, Florence Rusty Tullis, was 25, a free-spirited woman who had already lived a wild and complicated life. For the first 2 years, Rocky developed like any other child. He learned to crawl, walk, and talk right on schedule. No one in the family had a history of bone disorders, so there was no reason to suspect that anything was wrong. Everything changed during a routine tonsil surgery, when an X-ray technician noticed something strange about Rocky's skull. Further tests at UCLA Medical Center revealed an incredibly rare genetic disorder called craniodiaphyseal dysplasia, also known as Leonidas. The doctors told Rusty that her son's skull would continue to thicken, eventually crushing his brain. They warned her that he would go blind, lose his hearing, and die before the age of 7. Rusty refused to accept that fate. Rusty wasn't a conventional mother. Born in Brooklyn in 1936, she had run away as a teenager, joined biker gangs, and lived on the edge of rebellion. But that same defiance made her the perfect mother for Rocky. When doctors suggested she place him in an institution, she told them her son was intelligent and capable, and she demanded that he attend regular school. Rocky started public school at 6 despite administrators insisting his appearance would frighten other children. Instead, Rocky thrived. Though his skull was twice the normal size and his vision severely impaired, he became one of the top students in his class. He loved learning and made friends easily. He was named most good-natured camper at summer camp, and was known for his sense of humor and optimism. By age 6, Rocky was legally blind, with vision measured at 20 to 200 in one eye and 20 to 300 in the other. Doctors said he would never read, but Rusty refused to let that become his reality. She handed him a book and he read it aloud. He refused to learn Braille, preferring large print books instead. He endured constant medical visits, over 40 eye appointments by age 7, and never complained even during painful procedures. Rusty taught him to control his pain with breathing and focus. When he had a headache, she would tell him, "Go make yourself well," and somehow he did. After divorcing Rocky's father, Roy, in 1971, Rusty's home life became chaotic. Biker friends filled their house with loud music, motorcycles, and drugs. But those same bikers, members of the Turks motorcycle gang, became a kind of family for Rocky. They protected him and treated him like one of their own. His older half-brother Joshua, who later became a writer before dying of AIDS, helped take care of him too. Life was messy, but it was full of love. At school, Rocky faced cruelty from classmates who didn't understand his condition. When he was 10, a group of boys attacked him, throwing rocks and calling him names. He came home bleeding and asked his mother why he was so ugly. Rusty told him that if people laughed at him, he should laugh with them, and if he acted beautiful, people would see him that way. Rocky took that lesson to heart. He began making jokes about his appearance before others could. His humor became his shield. He even entered the school science fair that same year, building a working volcano and winning first place. Teachers and students began to see him as brilliant rather than strange. Despite worsening headaches and nearly total blindness, Rocky excelled in junior high. He memorized entire chapters of history and helped classmates with homework. Teachers were amazed at his photographic memory and resilience. When a counselor tried to move him to special education, Rusty threatened to sue. Rocky's confidence and humor made him beloved by many. Still, the pain was constant. His skull continued to grow heavier, pressing against his brain and making even simple movements exhausting. Yet he refused painkillers and relied on breathing exercises to cope. By the time he reached high school, Rocky's world had begun to shrink. His headaches intensified, and his closest friends moved away. He was still funny and kind, but the loneliness crept in. He met a blind girl named Diana Adams while working as a counselor's aide at Camp Bloomfield, a camp for blind children. She couldn't see his face, but she ran her fingers across it to see him. Rocky described colors to her using textures, warm stones for red, cool ones for blue. They fell in love, but when her parents saw Rocky in person, they forbade her from seeing him again. They took her away without letting her say goodbye. Rocky never got over it. The loss of Diana broke something inside him. He still smiled and joked with others, but he began retreating from the world. He pinned maps of Europe on his bedroom wall, dreaming of traveling there with his best friend, Ben. When Ben decided to take a job in Michigan instead, Rocky felt betrayed. He tore the pins from the wall one by one. That empty map symbolized everything he'd lost: the girl he loved, his dreams, and his hope. At home, Rusty's world continued to spiral. Drugs were everywhere, and she had several run-ins with the law. Still, she adored her son. She said later that despite her lifestyle, she never allowed anyone to pity Rocky. She raised him to see his condition not as a curse but as something that made him unique. Once, when Rocky laughed at a little person, Rusty scolded him and said, "Everyone can look like anyone else, but no one can look like you. Take pride in that." He never forgot it, and it was the reason he refused surgery that could have altered his face. When doctors offered to operate, he asked, "Who will I see in the mirror if I change my face?" By 1978, Rocky's health had declined sharply. He could barely walk and spent his final weeks in a wheelchair. The pain was relentless, but he never begged for relief. On the night of October 3rd, he went to bed complaining of a terrible headache. Before sleeping, he told his mother he didn't want to be kept alive by machines and wanted to die at home. Rusty promised him she would honor his wish. The next morning, October 4th, 1978, while Rusty was at her lawyer's office facing drug charges, Rocky passed away in his sleep. He was 16 years old. True to his word, Rocky had arranged to donate his body to medical science. His remains were studied at UCLA to help doctors better understand craniodiaphyseal dysplasia. There was no funeral or headstone. His mother honored his wish to be cremated after his body had been used for research. Rusty carried deep guilt for not being home when he died, a guilt that followed her until her own death in 2006. In 1985, the film Mask was released, inspired by Rocky's life. It portrayed Rusty as a loving but reckless mother and Rocky as a gentle hero. The movie won awards and made $48 million, but Rusty later said it told only half the truth. It left out the drugs, the chaos, the biker life, and the raw honesty of their bond. She admitted that Rocky had experimented with marijuana and LSD once, but said he quickly rejected it, telling her, "I don't know why people do that stuff. I'm already higher than most people." The real story of Rocky Dennis wasn't just about disease or tragedy. It was about defiance, humor, and courage in the face of a life that was never easy. Doctors said he wouldn't live past 7, but he made it to 16. They said he wouldn't read, but he devoured books. They said he wouldn't think clearly, but he became one of the brightest students in his class.